one. So, hey everyone, it's a nice happy Friday. Good seeing you guys in your sunshiny faces, which I actually don't see anyone except for Paul, which is good enough for me. We got about a couple more minutes before we see who all has trickled in. Good time for everyone to be like, we're live, and share the link on Twitter. You know,
it's always
which
that,
is actually what I'm doing immediately.
Start of streaming
right
on YouTube, where it's like, I think we're live. All right, everyone, just kind of come on in, settle in.
Okay, well, I just tweeted live with a link to the YouTube one. I'll just do the Odyssey in the comments. Why not?
Yeah.
And tagged you, so you could easily retweet that as we get more people. And yeah, it's been a crazy day. Like literally, all I got to do was like get up, go to a funeral, come back, and sit down here like 10 minutes before I sent you the link. So this has not been
running around.
Yeah, it's been a crazy day. And yeah,
not the kind of crazy you like either.
Yeah, and also like a bunch of people starting drama and like message groups and stuff that I just don't have time to be able to look into. So it's going to be a fun, after show time. And of course, double shot today, not single shot.
Double shot of coffee.
Yeah, espresso. And
I got mine as well. But
coffee and more Bitcoin.
That
sounds
just
good.
Plain coffee.
Yeah, it's just made myself a quick latte in my little festive.
That's right, with your own espresso maker, which I remember us having discussions about while you were over here in California.
Yeah, it was. It's lasted us like 5 years, I think. It's a solid piece of equipment. And
well, once it starts to die and you're looking to upgrade, I can be your espresso machine consultant. I've had some experience, although then again, I'll probably make you go down a path you shouldn't go down with some amazing machines.
The path of bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy, or if you easily say yes, then you've probably got enough Dash and Bitcoin stashed away.
Yeah, which is not the case
over the years. So yeah, I probably shouldn't be guiding you down that path.
Yeah,
especially if you're a coffee aficionado, it could be a dangerous path.
Yeah, for sure. It is funny how like coffee has become like coffee and pizza are like the two foodstuffs of
Bitcoin.
Crypto legend, right?
It's because crypto people stay up all night looking at charts and looking at code, and coffee goes well with that. And people stay up all nights writing code and going to meetups, and that's pretty much pizza's all you get. That's pretty much it. Hackathons, meetups. It seems like pizza is the de facto standard of food. Even at our meetups, it's like, well, it's always pizza, and plus there's Bitcoin pizza, so we can actually use the Bitcoin that our meetup gets a sponsorship, because it's not an organization. It's full agorist, right? It's just like it's a multi-sig wallet that gets sponsorships, and then we have to pay for things for the meetup, such as pizza. And so no one has to convert into credit card, payback dollars, and you just buy the pizza outright.
Yeah, which is a great thing. And it's kind of funny how like Bitcoin pizza is like the first thing that started to give Bitcoin value over the years. Is that first, like, it's worth something in the real world. And then the cup of coffee was always such a, well, you can't buy a cup of coffee, and then like you don't
Not
need
allowed
to. But then like, oh, we got Lightning, we can. And it's like it's kind of persisted. And just yesterday I got blocked by a maxi, as they were, who was advocating, who said something like the most private way to spend Bitcoin is to hodl it. And I was like, well, what do you use with your bank account? And his brain short-circuited, not being able to consider the financial censorship he was subjecting himself to. And then it was very like I would say like polite and nice on my end, but he still got angry and blocked me, which, it is what it is, right? It happens.
It's an easy button. Some people are kind of block happy.
Yes.
You're happy with that block button.
The joys of Twitter. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to roll the intro and make this thing actually official, and we get going in all this. So
all right, let's do it.
A moment, and we go. So, hey everyone, happy Friday once more in more official capacity. I'm joined by the one and only Paul Puey for this wonderful quick little chat we're having here. How's it going, Paul?
Going well. How about yourself, Joel?
Pretty
Have you back
nice.
in the show?
Yeah. Thanks for being back on. You have been on for since when this show's a little bit more ghetto. I hadn't gotten some graphics done and stuff like that. And so
Seen it grow over the years.
I should point out some things. First off, you can hit the like button, please. I always like that. But also, I have a Discord server that's completely NFT powered. So if you have one of my NFTs, you get into the Discord and you can leave a super chat in the little digital cash rundown channel, and I'll put it up on the screen if you do. And that's kind of the way we do it. And there's a link in the description on how to buy some NFTs, although I got to really overhaul them because I just have like the wax NFT thingy there. And so also, if you go to cointr.ee/the desert links, as per usual, you can kind of get around that and just like leave a little crypto tip with a little message. And then that will pop up on the screen. But it's just not as fun as like being part of the in club and having shiny totem to like show everyone you're better than everyone else. That's all that matters in life after all, right? All right, well, let us hit on this first thing of the day, which unfortunately for this little headline here, it's all about the price, but Matic or Polygon price eyes 200% gains on Polygon adoption by Instagram, JP Morgan. And Polygon's list of high-profile partners is getting larger, with Disney, Starbucks, and Robinhood already onboarding its blockchain. So it's in a bunch of high-profile partnerships, including the partner for Meta for their NFT stuff. And yeah, this is something that I didn't, I guess, myself see coming as much. Yeah. But it seems like Polygon, I mean, I knew that all this stuff was, like, it makes sense, right? That NFT and Web3 is a big chunk of the future. And also at the same time, Ethereum on-chain is like a little expensive and clunky or limited. Mm-hmm. So this makes perfect sense, but I just wasn't paying enough attention to the space. I'm just trying to now. And yeah, it seems like Polygon's really got some giant first mover advantage in a lot of this. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, so we've been eyeing Polygon for quite some time. In Edge, we've had Polygon support, both Matic itself as well as Polygon tokens for quite a number of months, if not a year now. I can't remember exactly when it had started. And the main differentiator, because don't get me wrong, there is a bunch of chains trying to either be layer twos to ETH or to compete against ETH. And admittedly, Polygon, while it is a layer two, in many ways competes with ETH. Because you don't need ETH in order to use Polygon. Now, Polygon uses ETH because it actually settles a lot of its validation on the ETH network. But you as an end user could know nothing about Ethereum and be using Polygon. So it hides the kind of utility of the ETH token when you're transacting on Polygon. And so I think of it in some ways as a competitor to ETH, even though people say it's a layer two. But even in that regard, there was one thing we noticed about Polygon, and I'm not sure if this was a biz dev thing or if it's truly about their tech. I have a feeling it's more of a biz dev thing that they've succeeded in, is that unlike many other EVM chains that are trying to compete with Polygon, including the non-EVM big VC chains like Solana, the one thing that Polygon has is pretty good support on the fiat on and off ramps for its tokens. Now, a lot of these big chains have good support for their main token, like Matic has good support, and like Solana has pretty decent support. Avalanche has good support, but the tokens on there typically don't. And when I refer to tokens, the primary things that we're concerned with are the stable coins, and some of the pegged coins, such as like Wrap Bitcoin. And the stable coins have had support, at least with our fiat on and off ramps for quite some time, like being able to get USDC. Polygon, sell USDC, Polygon has been decently well supported far earlier. And actually, even to this point, we just don't see really good support for those tokens on other networks. So that for us has been a big differentiator, and possibly is a differentiator for some of these other projects, these big names, like JP Morgan and Disney and whatnot, is some of that broader support for not just this asset as a speculative instrument, but for the tokens on that chain, which start to bring the utility of that chain to life, could be what's leaning towards a lot of these grander partnerships. Whether or not the technology is strongly competitive against other similar technologies, like I'm thinking, chains such as like Optimism, which are also trying to kind of work their way up the ladder, but just don't have really good on and off ramp support. But whether or not the tech really competes well against that is a little bit harder to determine. The technology is definitely much more nuanced and harder for the plebs to analyze. But they've definitely done something good with respect to their first mover advantage and their biz dev, because they've got pretty broad support. And that's the thing that has helped for us in our implementation of DeFi.
Yeah. It's kind of like this entire world is relatively new to me because I'm more of a digital cash maximalist. I've been sort of doing that forever. And at some point I realized that grandpa got to grow up and like smell the roses and learn a TikTok dance or two, you know? So
Yep.
at some point, you know, I was looking into all this stuff I initially focused on Wax because it's, you know, similar to EOS and other chains. And I just know they have a whole lot of stuff going on there. And a bunch of people I know and respect in the NFT space are kind of big on that. And then I started looking over on like the ETH side of things. And obviously ETH way too expensive. I'm not even going to touch the main chain probably ever. But I noticed that Polygon was the like number one, number two, as it were. Like everywhere it was like ETH and, you know, Polygon too, or maybe not, but then it pops in. And so it was kind of that simple. And then so I have done like a test NFT on Polygon, which worked out pretty well. And also, of course, I have an unstoppable domain that I got minted on Polygon. So that's kind of like the extent now, but hopefully I'm going to be minting a lot of my NFTs on Polygon because the onboarding experience is just so much easier for me for getting like a new person. Just like, all right, we'll get a MetaMask. Everyone has one of those or something like that. And then buy this thing. And then you just go in and hit sign transaction. You're into my Discord, for example. Initially focused on Wax because it's, you know, similar.
Yeah.
And then
so I mean, the onboarding is easy depending on where that user is kind of starting off with. Admittedly, if they're starting off with nothing, then onboarding onto Polygon is as easy as onboarding onto Dash, is as easy as onboarding onto ETH and whatnot. But then I think where Polygon shines is the fact that you've onboarded someone, but then for them to actually go and use whatever utility you're providing, such as being able to acquire, receive, send NFTs, that experience of like, whoa, this is a pretty hefty fee on Ethereum, which then, of course, if you try to lower it, could mean a hefty amount of time that you're waiting. We all know that trade-off, right? You could pay less fees, but you end up waiting a much longer amount of time, taking the risk of your transaction getting dropped. So that's the user experience that kind of sucks. And so Polygon has had a huge advantage in that regard. And the fees have been relatively low, although I've heard it's definitely one of the harder nodes to run. You know, we were in close collaboration with the Thorchain team, and Polygon doesn't yet have support within Thorchain. One of the challenges that they've brought up is that it's very costly for a node operator on Thorchain to operate a Polygon node. Right, there's just way higher volume of transactions because it is cheap. So it starts to beg the question: could ETH would it scale given the exact same number of transactions as Ethereum? Is it actually cheaper, or would they end up becoming similar in price? So that would be an interesting question to find out. You know, obviously ETH is supported, but it's huge. It's like one of those you have to support ETH, I mean, no matter what cost. But how would the two compare when they achieve apples to apples level of utility?
Yeah. So the thing about Polygon that's been strange for especially people who look at from the outside, not to single it out, of course, because this happens to a lot of things, but it's kind of touted as an Ethereum scaling solution, as an L2.
All right.
A lot of ways it seems completely like an independent blockchain itself, like a completely its own thing. But then it's built on an Ethereum smart contract, or rather the kind of ownership, the control over, you know, the token itself.
Right.
And so it's, if it weren't for that, it doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with ETH. And if it weren't for bridges, I guess, does the fact of being associated on some technical level with ETH make it more functional as a scaling solution than just a completely separate blockchain? Like, does it help bridging or anything like that?
On a technical level, I'm open to someone going and tweeting me and challenging this, because I'm not 100% certain of this.
At Pollinator.
On a technical,
2 L's.
yeah, at Pollinator with 2 L's. At the technical level, I don't believe that them settling their transactions on the Ethereum chain at all helps with the bridging. The bridging still has the same challenges whether or not you're bridging, ETH tokens and ETH to Polygon or ETH tokens over to Avalanche, which Avalanche makes no claim to be like an L2 of Ethereum. Like they want to be like an Ethereum killer, right? So I think the challenges of bridging and the security risks of bridging exist either way. I do think that Polygon has achieved some level of its success as being touted as a scaling solution for Ethereum, in the sense that you will draw in some of the Ethereum fans, even if they realize, hey, my Ethereum isn't worth anything here. Like I can't use it any better here than I can use it on another chain. In contrast, there are other L2 solutions where the native token actually is ETH, similar to layer twos on Bitcoin, such as Rootstock, where the native token is Bitcoin, or at least it's a token based on the value of Bitcoin. So those are, I would personally call true L2s. That's my at least personal definition of a layer two, is you're extending the functionality of the specific asset with another network that gives it, whether it be scaling or more functionality. Like Lightning is an L2 because the main asset there is Bitcoin, right? Rootstock's an L2, main asset's Bitcoin, same thing. Those are what I personally would define as an L2. But at the same time, I'm not opposed to it not being an L2. If Polygon said that they weren't an L2 and they were an L1 and they were, trying to compete with Ethereum, I don't care. If you could do a better job at it, I don't need the false marketing. Sure, I need a different asset. I got to use Matic instead of ETH. That's fine. If the fees are just notably lower, then that's what I'm going to be caring about more so. And that's what we cared about in our decision to support Polygon. That really was it, especially within the DeFi protocols where it matters a whole lot more. DeFi operations being incredibly expensive on gas, you definitely want that gas price to be much lower.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of worth noting that Polygon generates about the same amount of fee revenue as Solana does right now, which is around 15 to 20% of what Bitcoin does. So it's not like I've been taken to using this total fees generated kind of thing metric as like the best, if we can even consider that, adoption metric, because it's kind of like on-chain transactions, but you can't really fake them as easily because you're spending money for them. So it's probably the best we have. You can't really tell, right? You can't really 100% have an adoption metric that's like you can see on chain, but this is probably about as close as you can get. I don't know if you disagree with that or add.
No,
some
I don't
nuance.
disagree with it. I don't disagree with it. I think you can refine that statement and say it's a great adoption metric with respect to security budget, right? Because that exactly defines the security budget of a protocol. A lot of people like to quote, hashes per second, and oh my God, look at how our hashes per second have gone up tremendously, and therefore our chain is way more secure. That is an 100% inaccurate way of measuring the security of a network. Let me just make that statement right now. If you see someone tweet that some chain has gone up in the number of hashes per second, that is not an accurate estimate of the security budget. And I'll kind of tell you why. Because the entire ecosystem of technology may have simply upgraded to allow for faster hashes with faster chips. But you might be still putting the same amount of dollars in hashing. And really the security budget of a network is based on the dollar value of the people that stake money, right? So how much money do they stake, and then how much money are they earning? Because that's how much they have to lose. All of those earnings that they have is what is risk to lose. You don't earn that if you mess up, all right? If you compromise the system, you don't earn that value. So it's really measured in what, I hate to say it, but what our industry still defines as the unit of account. And the unit of account, I hate to say it, is primarily still dollars. And that's where your security budget is measured, not in hashes per second. Because that changes given the same dollar value. Every year, we can do more hashes per second at the same dollar value. So you really have to take in that dollar amount. That's a harder thing to derive, but it's the more accurate thing to derive in to determine the true security budget of a network.
Yeah, and security budget is kind of I guess a more in the weeds way of saying like an equivalent of revenue, because the network spends money on security budget, and that's about it. Like
Yep.
every network, basically the money that they spend is so people secure the network. I guess you
Yeah.
could also say if you didn't have, for example, on Bitcoin, if you didn't have any miners, no one would be processing transactions either. So I'd call it transaction processing as well as security budget. It's kind of the same. It's not the same thing at all, but it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of revenue, money paying customers are giving. And under older, I guess, more traditional crypto systems like Bitcoin that have a fixed supply, I would consider inflation to be kind of like VC funding a little bit, like investment, like you're living on bootstrap funds until you become profitable as a company, as a network.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, with Ethereum, with EIP 1559, kind of changed that around a little bit with like the burn and
Burning.
mint mechanism. It's not
Right.
quite the same, but it's so when people say like X is used, Y is used, I mean, if something doesn't have a lot of transactions on the network, it's clearly not used. If it does have a lot of transactions on the network, it's either used or someone's spamming stuff like BSV style. And
Right.
then, but if there's a lot of transactions and a lot of fees being generated, a lot of people are paying for the value of using the network. And if inflation goes away, there's still incentive to secure the network and process those transactions. So that's kind
Got
of the
it.
metric. But basically, by that metric, Polygon's doing pretty well.
It's doing really, really well. And so you're actually, so I want to clarify what I heard from you because maybe I misheard. So when you say that they're 20% of the fee collection in comparison to Bitcoin, you're referring to pure raw transaction fees, not the block reward quote unquote fees. Because some people
Yes.
look at that as fees as well.
Just what people are paying to use.
Got it. Okay, in that case, as an adoption metric, you're right. That is a huge and valid metric for pure raw adoption. It contributes to the security, but it's not alone. It's almost like you need to know both of the fees that people pay plus what the inflation is, basically like the block reward independent of the fees. And the two of them contribute to the security budget. But by itself, the amount that people are willing to pay is a great proxy for adoption because that's people willing to actually pay money to use the network. So I think you're 100% right there, Joel. We agree.
Yeah.
We agree there. Pretty
Now-
much rock solid.
That's also an adoption metric on the upper level, kind of, not on the lower level. So like, for example, in the nuance here, so if you go down the list, right? So you have what, like 46 grand a day or 45 grand a day by Polygon, and you go down to like Dogecoin is 16, and go down all the way down. You go to the very bottom of the cryptofees.info. You have Bitcoin Cash generating $37.31 in fees a day, which for a whole network is, no way around it, just extremely low.
Right.
However, that doesn't mean that that's as much as they would be willing to pay. That's just as much as they're paying now that fees are so extremely low because there's no network congestion or capacity issues. Now, if they were, for that same amount would be much higher for that amount of transactions, I think. And so it's just because it's practically free for miners to process extra transactions. If they started to restrict things, like happened with so there was a Bitcoin SV miner recently, a majority miner, who was refusing to process almost all transactions, and they thought it was like an attack or a hostile action, but it turns out it was just, from my understanding, I haven't looked into it super closely, but they were just refusing to process free or super low fee transactions. Like it just wasn't worth it financially to them.
Because it was expensive. Running a BSV node is incredibly expensive. We hit this firsthand ourselves trying to run a node. So I could understand a miner saying, hey, this is more than I could financially encompass. And so that's free market principles at its finest.
Yeah. It's so for networks such as Bitcoin Cash, for example, I don't think we'll be able to see. I think the fee network, the total fee generated might look unfairly low for an adoption metric just because it's not at capacity. So like if you spammed the BCH network with a ton of very cheap or almost free transactions, then I think that fee revenue block would probably go up like 10x at least. Like it would go up several fold probably, as the legitimate users would now be like, instead of paying a fraction of a cent, they'd pay 1 or 2 cents per transaction to buy their things, and then it would be a more accurate thing. But definitely, that's just on the early bootstrap stages. At some point, I think the revenue metric can become a lot more accurate.
Yeah, when blocks aren't full, for one thing, and there isn't a minimum, or if the minimum fee is just insanely low, right, with empty blocks, then you're not going to generate a lot of fee revenue. Now, one thing I think that the BCH network can do is start increasing the minimum fee. So blocks aren't full, but we're just not going to accept that transaction unless the fee is a little bit higher. And then, of course, the next step in increasing fee revenue is just simply getting more transactions, because the blocks aren't full. Last I've checked, blocks are not full in the BCH network. So even if they keep the same minimum fee, you just double, triple, quadruple, 10x the number of transactions on the network, then your fee revenue does exactly that. You combine the two, increase the minimum, which I think they have plenty of space to increase the minimum, because right now fees are so incredibly small that I don't know if they're sustainable at that level. I think they can definitely move up a little bit. You can move up 10x, and they'd still be generating fees that are not unreasonable to the average user. So that I think is, they were so hell bent on keeping fees so super insanely low that they haven't hit that moment of like, it can go up a bit and still be very reasonable compared to all these other different blockchains out in the world, and generate a bit more revenue for the miners, which makes it more sustainable, which hopefully gets a better security budget, which then invites more people to use the chain and therefore creates more transaction volume. You know how it is. It's a circular economy. You got to incentivize all the parties at the same time.
Yeah. I honestly think that in the case of those kinds of things, having super, super cheap fees is great to get more people used to using the network, while you can still afford to do so by having inflation. And when the inflation starts to dry up, then you need to start increasing fees, even if you're not at capacity. But in the early days, it's like, great. Like I have one of the reasons that I love to use crypto is it's so cheap for the most part. And then every time I use a Bitcoin transaction today, and it's just like a few, like 5 to 50 cents, I get a little grumpy, but I still use it. I mean, I usually use other things 90% of the time, but there's some things I need BTC for. And so when I do that, I still get a little grumpy, but it's still fine. Like I'm more than happy to pay 5 cents for a transaction. More than that, I'm not happy. But it's just that I would never have gotten to that stage if this weren't established. Like if someone's like, we got this revolutionary digital cash thingy, costs like 5 cents to send, you're still going to be saving a little bit. I don't think I would have cared, honestly. So it's just that get them hooked with like the free version, and then start making them pay.
And start charging. Yeah, this is the way our world works, right? Your first hit's for free. And when I got first involved in Bitcoin, it was never free, but you could try to send a free transaction. You had a chance it would go through. Like no fee at all. Like there was no dust limit. Like you could send literally no mining fee. And there was, I think, a little bit of space left in every block to fit these free transactions. And that was kind of a standard, not part of consensus. There was no dust limit. Like default, you could send literally no mining fee run. So this is and there was, going back memory lane history for those of you that may not be as familiar with kind of Bitcoin and how it worked in its early days. After blocks started getting close to full, they eliminated that section of the block space that said, okay, we're going to reserve these for free transactions. And now everybody had to pay. But admittedly a small amount, and it was fixed in units of Bitcoin for a long period of time. It was like 0.0001 Bitcoin, whatever that amounted to. And every time that became worth more, the community would come together and say, let's reduce it now to 0.00001 Bitcoin. And it was a very manual process, and then became the full free market of fees, where you pay, your wallet software tries to determine what's the optimal amount to pay to get you into the next block, but, not pay too much. And then it became admittedly a bit of a shit show in fee estimation. It's better now, but mainly because a lot of the volume actually left Bitcoin. A lot of the frequent high transaction volume, both maybe it went to Lightning, and Lightning is, consolidating a lot of the transactions into the opening and closing of channels. Definitely a lot of it went to other networks and other chains. But, like you said, 5 to 50 cents, that actually sounds amazing compared to our good old 2017, 2018 days when it was $5 to $50.
Yeah.
Was what it took to send a Bitcoin transaction. And I remember a famous quote from Vitalik when Bitcoin was costing quite a bit to send. He had criticized Bitcoin and said, the internet of money should not cost 5 cents to send a transaction. Which now I don't know that you can create an Ethereum transaction for less than 5 cents. So, he was the victim of some of his own words, unfortunately. But what I like though is that the Ethereum community is making a concerned effort to get that cost down
Yeah.
and drive higher transaction throughput at a lower cost per transaction than simply accepting that, yes, layer one transactions are simply going to be expensive. We'll have to do things like Lightning and then layer twos. Ethereum has made a concerted effort to reduce those layer one transactions, and that at least gives me strong hope.
Yeah, for sure. I should kind of circle back to the beginning on like the whole Polygon thing, and just add like the, now to be fair, devil's advocate thing. I'm sure you're familiar with Justin Bonds and his Twitter threads all over the place.
No, I've known Justin for quite some time. I had some one-on-one conversation with him in office at his office over in Amsterdam. I've visited and met him several times at the meetups over there. So yeah, I've known Justin for quite some time.
Yeah, he's famous for dumping on bad projects in big old Twitter threads. Of course, he does like constructive ones too sometimes, but usually when you have education, it tends to like dig into some flaws, which mostly are not being publicized. And some stuff he's mentioned on Polygon is that it's not an entirely decentralized system right now.
I have heard those. I have heard those criticisms, and I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to some of those criticisms because I haven't analyzed the network to the same degree that he likely has as far as what keys, who controls the keys that could affect the network's consensus mechanism. And I think that is a legitimate concern. Are the keys distributed enough? Is it a case where there is a roadmap to distribute them, much like every network starts off very centralized? It's whether or not the technology gives it the opportunity to be more decentralized or sufficiently decentralized over time. People always say Bitcoin started off with one miner. It was only Satoshi. Can't say it was always decentralized.
Yeah.
And same thing for some of these other networks, including
pre-mined Satoshi. That gets people upset.
Satoshi basically pre-mined a whole bunch of Bitcoin all on his own.
Coincidentally, because there weren't other people really mined. They could have.
No one really knows. They could have. Yeah. So
pre-mining
it's not a whole lot different. There's more analogies to Bitcoin start and other crypto start than people want to admit. The whole concept of pre-mining or centralization early on. So question being, yes, can Polygon achieve a level of distributed ownership and distributed control of something like an ETH, something like Bitcoin over time? And where are they at today? And how has that progress been? And unfortunately, I can't comment too closely as far as that's concerned. But it's one of those unfortunate realities. You see that with the massive adoption of Matic and Polygon, by and large, people don't care. People don't care about decentralization. They care about you giving a product that works. And at the end of the day, if it works. And so what is it about Bitcoin that people want? Wipe out decentralization, right? No one cares about decentralization, or the few people that do are just a loud squeaky wheel. People care that they can take money, they can own this value. Yes, it may be volatile, but they can send it to anyone, anywhere in the world. All right. That's kind of what made crypto unique. Is you've got some money, maybe volatile, but you at least know what its issuance rate is. Right, so it's one of the value propositions to Bitcoin, and you can send it to anyone, anywhere in the world. Now, if Polygon is able to achieve that, then people will use it regardless of what the hell is going on underneath the covers. Now,
regardless of how tight the guarantees of that always being the case.
You never know how tight the guarantees are. Some definitely are tighter than others. And really, time is the only test. Time is truly the only test. Yeah. And if we start to see some protocols which may have less of a guarantee start to crumble, then that ripple effect will start getting people to lean towards the ones that have a higher guarantee, a higher level of distribution. But unfortunately, I don't think people are going to care. The masses aren't going to care until some of these protocols start to crumble and you start seeing censorship, you start seeing funds frozen, and you start seeing nodes get shut down that actually affect the consensus of the network. When that happens, then you start to be concerned and money starts to move accordingly. But that time hasn't really happened for most any chain.
My gut reaction, and this is not based on data or thorough analysis, just a feeling. So I'm more than happy to be very wrong on this prediction. But my gut prediction on that is somewhere around 2028, 2029, there will be a wave, a movement towards the stronger fundamentals. Like right now, I don't think many people use crypto. Many more than you might think. I think this next bull run is going to be a early majority adoption run where you might see like 5% of people paying crypto in some places and stuff. Like you're going to start to see a significant volume of people, and then all the problems are going to start to hit, and then people are going to start looking at more stability and alternatives. Like there might, for lack of a better, parallel, they might start going away from the Doge coins and then towards like the Bitcoins or something in like 2028, for example, like return to stronger. There's just a gut feeling. I don't know if you have a similar one or you think I'm completely off base here.
No, I do think that utility is when we start to see various coins really shine or crumble. Because without utility, it's just speculation. And when it's just speculation, you're not really using the protocol. You're not really using the technology. It's just like, hey, who has the marketing? Who's got like the VC funding behind it? Who's got the brand name recognition? Which, Bitcoin's got great brand name recognition with no VC funding, and Solana's got great VC funding, and it's got brand name recognition but lower than Bitcoin. And so that's, I think, where we're at right now, with some maybe 5-10% effect of the actual underlying technology. I think the underlying technology is a very small percentage that drives the adoption of any of these protocols. But come, like you said, true adoption where we're needing the utility, now the technology starts to come into play. Like, am I going to get censored with these transactions? Am I going to be able to pay decently low fees for these transactions? And can this scale? And are my transactions going to go through quickly enough? Is there enough adoption of the DeFi protocols that I want and need on that chain? Those start to become bigger, more valuable things than just the speculative nature. And now you're going to hit the limits of those chains. So I do agree in that sense. When it will happen, I think I've predicted for some time that we needed about 2 more bull runs. And I think when I said that, we hadn't hit our previous bull run yet. So the previous bull run of 2021 was kind of one. The next one of the 2025 timeframe would be 2. So if I'm correct, we would be hitting it actually around the same time that you're referring to, which would be after the 2025. So around 2026 timeframe is when we start hitting higher utility. Now, granted, that was under a specific assumption that so far has been wrong, which is at least a 10x increase in global market cap of crypto on each bull run, because we did 20x in 2017. We did 20x. When I say 10x, I mean 10x from previous all-time highs. Yeah. So previous all-time high being about, what was it? It was like 1,100 in 2013. 4 years later, 2017, we hit almost 20x at 19K. So 1,100 to 19K, almost 20x. However, we didn't even hit a 10x all-time high to all-time high markup between 2017 and 2021. We only hit about 3x, 3.5x. So if that continues to slow down, then it could take more cycles, because one of my theories was the fact that we don't hit this adoption until crypto market cap starts to become a very significant amount of total dollars in circulation. Once it starts hitting a significant amount of total dollars in circulation, it starts to affect the value of the dollar. And once you start seeing crypto affect the value of the dollar, now granted, the value of the dollar has already been affected, but that's not because of crypto, right?
Yeah, of course.
That's for other reasons, because they just have so many dollars in circulation. But as people just want to exit the dollar and get into crypto, that's when you start really affecting the dollar. That's when I predict that suddenly the utility is going to shoot up, right? Because now people want to use the crypto because that's all they've got. That's a majority of what they have. So my prediction of 2 cycles was assuming at least a 10x increase in each cycle. That slowed down a bit. It might require yet another cycle, which would then put us into the 2029, 2030 timeframe for when we see a huge amount of adoption, and people are looking to spend, and that's really all they've got. And we've affected the dollar value pretty significantly.
That makes sense. I mean, it's
So
just like to closing out this decade. I think we're all going to be on crypto. I think that's not
that's what
everyone,
I'd love.
but a lot of
Not
people.
everyone, but I think the vast majority, and everyone will have heard of it. Almost everyone would
Hmm.
own some. It's kind of like the era where like most people are on the internet, and there's those few holdouts, and that's like grandma and grandpa that you still call on the phone, and
Yeah, and
you
I'm going to have
still
to
send them, you still
innovate
write that check.
because
It's one of those like, oh, you still want me to write, you still want me to swipe a credit card, blah blah blah. Yes,
that's
hopefully
my
by the end of this decade.
that's my time to innovate and change because I can't be the living on crypto guy. By then,
You
it's
can't,
just
yeah,
nothing left. No
you
one
can't be
cares.
the guy living on crypto anymore. It's got to be like, oh, you should open up a new show. I'm going to try to live on fiat in 10
Yeah,
years.
the fiat,
I'm going
the
to guy that
physical
tries to live on
cash
fiat.
network. Oof,
Yeah,
well rebrand.
exactly.
Oh, that's
The dirty
terrible.
cash network, because it might actually be physical. It's
Yes.
still digital, you know.
Yeah, of course. The CBDC network. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's lightning round it. This one is interesting. Saying not financial advice won't keep you out of jail, according to crypto lawyers. Australian
I've
U.S.
never.
digital asset lawyers told Cointelegraph that, by and large, the words on their own are pretty useless. They might
Yeah, I
need to
can imagine
practice
that.
what they preach, do their own research, et cetera, and because you get kind of like sued and stuff, which already that's something that like I always say is not financial advice, but I also don't give anything that could be construed as financial advice. I educate on subjects, or I say this tool works for that purpose. But like I've been super against talking about investment stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of crypto YouTubers don't. They're not
Oh,
financial
I've definitely
advice.
seen.
I think Matic's gonna pump from here, and that's like I'm
Oh,
buying
they're not
Matic.
financial
It's gonna
advice.
pump. It's like, oh well, that's not financial advice, but that's still kind of nonsense.
Exactly. No, I've seen that, and I'm on some email newsletters that I'm like, wow, this sounds a whole lot like financial advice. Like they're saying, hey, listen to our podcast for like the next big pumping coin and where Ethereum's going to go and blah blah blah. I'm like, wow, that's about as close to financial advice as I could get. And I've always agreed, yeah, saying that has no meaning, has absolutely no meaning. It's what you do, not
Yeah.
what you say you're doing, that really matters. So, yeah, you could say it, but really it's the way you act. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't hurt people and go punch someone, right? You got to act accordingly as well.
Yeah.
So, not
To
that I like the legal, like I don't think once again don't think that it should be wrong to give financial advice. I don't think you should need licenses to give financial advice. I'm 100% against that concept, but we do live in the world that we live in. And so if you want to avoid the liability, just don't actually give financial advice, regardless of what you said you just gave.
Yeah. It's kind of like that old school meme. It's just like the aliens meme. I'm not saying this is financial advice, but it's financial advice.
Yeah. Probably one way like I try to avoid stepping on those toes is saying, here's a historical thing that Bitcoin's done or ETH's done or Dash has done. It's done it like this. Might it repeat? I don't know. But
Yeah.
here's some history. I'm just going to give you some history. That's it. Right. So that might be the closest way to give people some insight on price, but not give them any predictions necessarily.
Yes. I always also say I have no idea what's going to happen. We
Yeah.
did get a super chat over here from Greatwolf who says, I miss those Paul Puey and Naomi live streams. Any chance of seeing some of that come back? Second question, would like to see a way to purchase Dash through Edge. Is that something Paul can pull off? Oh, and thanks for getting Dash Direct working on Edge too, by the way. I know that took quite a long time to resolve.
Yeah, it did. Well, appreciate you giving Edge a try. So several questions there. The live stream of Naomi, definitely ping Naomi on that. If you want to hear, she is super busy. She's of course exploded. She creates great content. She has more of a focus on privacy as opposed to crypto. Now, crypto and
Yes, which
privacy do
I
cross
should
over.
ask everyone. Did you know that your phone is spying on you?
Oh yeah,
If you
of course,
didn't,
everyone should know that.
watch NBTV so you can subscribe to get all the what is the tagline? Get all the tips to live a modern, privacy-conscious lifestyle. All right,
Exactly.
enough
And I
of the
think that
Naomi
is
show.
an amazing and great focus that she's given because it's something that's always been her passion. She's been amazing with that, both in and out of the crypto realm. So maybe we'll do some episodes on crypto where it relates to privacy, and how to achieve privacy with crypto. What are some great coins and their protocols and how they achieve privacy? But probably not in general like DeFi and random tokens what we did before because it's not in line with her focus. And I'm all about people focusing as opposed to trying to do everything everywhere. So will we do that again? Possibly. It might be in a bit of a different format, but definitely let her know that opinion as well because she's got to eke out some time to be able to do those kind of shows and that kind of content and make sure that you express your interest level in that. Second, there was another question about what was it?
Let me see.
So was it a
Yeah,
super
so
chat?
it's an easy way to purchase Dash through Edge, like with
Oh
fiat on
yes,
ramps.
okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we are definitely limited by our fiat on ramps and who can support purchasing of Dash.
Mm-hmm.
We can, obviously, it's a two-step process, but you can purchase Bitcoin almost anywhere in the world through Edge and then easily convert that over into Dash.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one option. We did recently, because of our implementation of Aave, which I'm not sure if I've shared with your audience before, which is the ability to borrow inside of Edge. We created a very compelling technology built into Edge, what we're calling like our action queue or our action nodes, which allow us to take various blockchain transactions and chain them together and make them one step for the user, so that the user doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to go and do things like, oh, buy Dash, buy Bitcoin, and then trade it in for Dash.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we chain those transactions and it looks like you're just simply buying. It can look like you're just buying Dash. We haven't implemented that specifically. We have implemented it for some smart contract operations where, for example, instead of having to take Bitcoin, convert it into a token like wrap Bitcoin first, wait for that to happen, and then take the wrap Bitcoin and then deposit it into a smart contract to take out a loan. What we've done is chain those transactions together so that you just do one operation. I want to take out a loan, and then it automatically converts your Bitcoin to a token and then automatically deposits it for a loan, and then even takes out the funds that you borrowed, the stable coin that you borrow, and even sends it directly to your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
We've used this new action queue technology we built to chain all these transactions together in the app, and we can use it to do other things such as being able to from fiat buy certain assets without making it a two-step process. Although the one only thing about that is there's no way for us to know how much you're going to get because it's a
Yeah.
two-step process. You're going from like Bitcoin to Dash. Well, how much Dash you're going to get depends on what the price of Dash to Bitcoin is by the time you receive the Bitcoin,
Yeah.
right?
I'm sure it's not a
So
huge
there's
problem.
yeah.
Small wrinkle.
So we can smooth some of that stuff out if that's of interest to people. Like they're willing to like, hey, sure, I'm happy to have you guys make it a one-step process, even if I don't know how much Dash I'm going to receive because of the volatility. Let us know. Send your
Mm-hmm.
feedback on that because that helps drive some of our product roadmap
Absolutely.
decisions.
And I'm going to hit on this last one here really quick. MakerDAO co-founder Nikolai Mushegyan dies at 29 in Puerto Rico. He's a important figure in the crypto community and contributed to multiple projects, including MakerDAO, BitShares, and Balancer. This is
Yeah.
something. I mean, it's sad. All I know about this, other than he died, is it appears to be he drowned in a dangerous spot. But also before then, he put out some interesting tweets about some kind of a CIA trafficking ring, and that they were on to him, and if he dies, it's not suicide, and that they offed him or something like all this kind of stuff. And I have not looked into this enough to know what's really going on, and I don't think any of us really know what's going on.
I don't think anyone does. It's one of those articles that we know as much as you reading the article. So
Yes,
we can only
exactly.
speculate the same level as you listeners right now are reading the article. I don't know if we'll ever know the truth behind this. This is the kind of stuff that governments can keep
Hmm.
hidden. If there was some, you know, kind of non-accidental him being off because of something that he had done that rubbed the government the wrong way, I don't know that we'll ever know. Like they're big, they can be bad, and they can also hide a lot of info from us. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of the privacy technology that we get to use and governments hate, guess what? They love using it themselves. And so part of that is being able to keep these things secret. It's one of the saddest and most unfortunate things to hear, especially for someone so young and had
Yeah.
really put together a legacy of some very innovative tech that's alive to this day. I remember learning about MakerDAO, God, back in 2017, 2016. I attended, what do you call it, DevCon, Ethereum DevCon, and actually sat with a good portion of the MakerDAO team.
Hmm.
And I don't think I got a chance to chat with Nikolai himself, but I chat with a few others from the MakerDAO team, being very fascinated about what they were building. At first, I was like, stablecoin, who cares about a dollar? I don't care about
Mm.
coins that are worth a dollar. Um, but they presented the use case of being able to do this within smart contracts. It's the building block of being able to build out DeFi. And then it really became an aha moment to be like, oh wow, there is this huge value in creating the stable coin. And they're the first and easily still the most successful algorithmic coin to a degree that doesn't have dollars backing it, although it does have USDC backing it now, which is a bit of a criticism, unfortunately. But anyway, this is not about that. This is about Nikolai.
Yeah.
And so to hear it happen to someone so young and so innovative and so key to the industry is incredibly sad. And let it not be known that for sure our industry will be keeping a close eye on the higher ups like this. They can't let this be happening to more people who have been key innovators. I would say that our industry people as a whole would revolt at this. There'd be too many smoking guns. If this happens one or two more times, then there's something wrong going on, because this doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like it was an accident. But once again, we're not going to be able to prove it.
That's exactly the thing. Is based on what he said, that sounds like two kinds of people would say that, and I don't know which kind it was. Someone who's a little nutty, and someone who's telling 100% truth. And I do not know which it is. And I the speculation kind of ends there.
Yeah. Admittedly, we are in an industry that, and I knew this getting into it, we are in not a 100% risk-free industry. When I say risk, I mean, I'm not talking about financial risk, just like personal well-being risk. And it's such a disruptive and revolutionary industry that we're in. There's just so many people to be upset at, not to be upset at, to be upset at us. It really pushes the wrong buttons in traditional finance and existing governments. That there is a risk. It's a non-zero risk, and people have to realize that. But at the same time, look at history. Look at every major change that's ever happened that's bettered humanity. People have had to die for it. And not saying that I want to die tomorrow. No way. I want to live a long, healthy life and be able to take care of my family. But I also, at the same time, I know everyone's going to die, and I would rather leave a legacy of something I contributed to that I'm proud of than just die, following the marching orders of existing rhetoric in society.
Of course.
So that I think is important enough to me, and hopefully to enough of the people that are building this new system, because they should be aware of what they're getting into. And that non-zero risk.
That's a fantastic point to conclude on. Let me just hit you with something real quick. So I sell these NFTs that let me in people into my Discord and all this kind of stuff. But there's a special one that I give to everyone who's on the show. So yay, I'm officially presenting you with a shiny golden microphone, which means you have a smooth, buttery toned voice and a lot of insight and are happy and worthy. It means anything that I can tell people it means. So
who needs a golden play button when I can have the golden microphone?
Exactly. So what all you got to do is just send me your, in this case, your Polygon address. And I will just from like an NFT or a signing capable wallet or whatever, like a MetaMask or XDeFi or whatever. And then in the metadata, in the little description thingy of the NFT itself, should have instructions on getting into the Discord. And then all I have to do is just like click verify with the bot, and it checks if you have the NFT. And if you sell it, you bastard, then you'll get booted out instantly from the Discord. So it's like literally just...
If I sell, what if I transfer it from one key to another?
Well, then you have to re-verify with the other account or whatever.
Oh, okay, cool. That's easy enough. Because, sometimes you want to put a $5 bill from your left pocket to your right pocket,
Yeah, but it will know. You'll have the bot to contend to, and I cannot help you.
So okay. Well, I can just tell the bot. I still have that key. I still have that. I still have the NFT.
Got it. All right, cool. Everyone, thanks for watching. Follow Paul at Pollinator on Twitter. Download the Edge wallet. It is the best multi-coin wallet that I've seen. At least like the mobile buying one. I mean, I'm not into like the browser extension world, which we were going to talk about that kind of.
There's no browser extension in there.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that thing, but that'll have to be another time. I have the Dash podcast coming right up after this, and so I don't want to make people grumpy, so I got to take off. But thanks very much for being on, Paul. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me again.
Enjoy the sunny San Diego, and I'll see you all in either 5 minutes or so or next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care.